Hello and welcome to Analysis. Ahead of the ruling party's national convention to produce its presidential candidate for the 2023 general elections, efforts and preparations are in top gear, all in a bid to ensure a smooth primary and that the party puts forward its best candidate. Now, early in the week, President Muhammadu Buhari met with governors of the party to fine-tune, if you like, the process of selecting or electing the party's presidential candidate. Now, the president's speech at that meeting is generating a lot of debate across the country. With his words carefully chosen and intention unmistaken, the president pleaded with the 22 governors of the ruling party to literally allow him choose his own successor to enhance continuity. Now, the president said the governors should reciprocate the party's good gesture of allowing outgoing governors choose their successors in their respective states. He assured that his choice presidential candidate now would give Nigerians a sense of triumph and confidence ahead of the general election and promised to sustain ongoing consultations ahead of the primary election. Now, this request has become a big talking point in the country today. I mean, APC rules actually allow for a consensus option, but the question is that could the president's choice now become the consensus candidate of the party? Could the over 20 aspirants who have been vigorously campaigning for delegates over the past months accept the decision and line up behind whoever the president chooses? Fingers crossed for now. But joining me to discuss this further, I have political affairs analyst Jide Ojo, and I also have Tonya Isokariari, who is also a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on the program. Let me start with you, Mr. Ojo. Does it surprise you that the president would make this request openly?
Well, nothing surprised me again in Nigeria because the nature and character of our politics is simply transactional. And over the years, even under the 16 years of PDP, we have seen this kind of charade where the incumbent president will want to choose his successor. It's not peculiar to Buhari. I recall that former President Olusegun Obasanjo made the choice of Umaru Yar'Adua a fait accompli in 2007. And you recall that he said that 2007 election was a do or die for him. And it was just like every other political party registered at that point in time, does not matter. He just simply asked every other contestant to give way to Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. I recall that as at that time, Governor Peter Odili was a frontline aspirant who has campaigned vigorously as much as Rotimi Amechi has done under this kind of situation in 2022. But the choice of Obasanjo then was Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, and he reloaded him into the presidency. And in 2011, the same thing happened. The powers that be feels that it is Goodluck Jonathan, and they did all the dirty works to make him the president. But is this democratic? The answer is no. Because again, I have a very strong reservation for the choice of the word of the president, that he should be allowed to choose his successor. He cannot choose his successor. He can only influence the choice of the
maybe that's just a question of language, because you're quite right. I can see some people are making a meal out of that. Couldn't we excuse the president on, just excuse him and say probably it's a language, it's a problem of language, the way he put it?
I don't think we should excuse the president. He knew what he was talking about. He wasn't speaking extempore. He wasn't speaking impromptu. He read a prepared text, and you quoted from that text that it should be that is why the party allows the governors in the state to choose their successor, that they should also allow him to choose his successor. A tree does not make a forest. He cannot appropriate the wisdom of 200 million plus Nigeria to himself as the one to pick our next president for us. What has he deserved? What has he done to deserve even that?
All right. It appears we have lost Jide Ojo there. Let me go to Tanya Isokariari. Tanya, thank you very much for staying with us. But give me your own take on this issue.
First of all, the issues is, this is a, political, the internal affairs of a political party. And the internal affairs of the political party, the president has said that the governor should give him an opportunity or reciprocate what has been given to them in terms of leeway, in the way they handle the political affairs of their states, and I don't think there's anything wrong with what the president has said. In fact, the president has actually even said is the right thing to say at this time, because, there's a lot of, heating up of the polity as it were, in the system, as with the whole political aspirant and everything. Now in APC, other parties have chosen their presidential candidate, and if the president has requested that, the governors, he was actually soliciting for the governors to join him, in encouraging him to choose whoever replaces him. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If anybody is not happy with what the president has said, then the person should go ahead and
let me ask you this.
What
do you make of the issue of timing? Shouldn't the president have made this request long before now? We're talking about the eve of the presidential primary, if you like.
The governorship
have gone round
primaries,
campaigning before delegates and all of that. Don't you think the president should have made that request before now, so that some people will clearly know that, look, the party is working towards a consensus, and probably drop out of the race before now?
The president has always made it clear that he's for a consensus option. He would rather choose a consensus option rather than people go around and spending their money and all that. So he has always made this known to anybody who cared to listen. He has also, don't forget, we just finished the governorship and National Assembly elections, across the country, and, I'm sure the president had seen what had happened, where, governors lorded over everything that happened in their states, be it governors or, critical stakeholders. They literally took over what was happening, in their state. And the president did not, lift a finger. Even in his state, Katsina State, he didn't even know, the person who was running for governorship. He was just introduced to the person who won, So you would think that, the president, at least, if not for anything, his state, he would know what is happening. But he didn't. He allowed the governors, and the party to do whatever they want to do. And he says, look, I've allowed you to do what you want to do, because you know the people more. For me, sitting here as a father of the nation and as a father of the party, I also know the people, and I believe that I know the person that will best, see if you read his, his statement, he said a candidate that will Nigerians will be happy with, and will be able to continue on some of the things that he has, set out to do. So he knows the type. He has told us the type of candidate. Should
the president single-handedly select who the candidate of the party should be? Single-handedly.
He said he was going to. That's why he's talking with the governors. To say, look, I need your support to be able to choose who I want to. That is him reaching out to the critical stakeholders of the party. So he's not single-handedly doing anything. He's just saying, look, I solicit your support. What that support will, support will sum up to, we don't know yet. But, he has said, look, I need your support. So I'm sure he has somebody or a few people in mind. And he's telling the governors that, look, when it's time, when I've finished considering and, reaching out to critical stakeholders, and I bring out a particular candidate, I need your support, because he's not just one man sitting in the presidential villa and saying that he wants Mr. A or Mr. B to take over after him.
Okay, let's just quickly take a short break so that we can bring Jide Ojo back. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, we now have Jide Ojo back with us. And so let me come back to you, Jide Ojo, and sorry we lost you there at some point. I mean, does it come to you? Does it? You saw. You must have read what the president said. I mean, from the president's speech, does it come across to you as someone who is saying he wants to single-handedly choose who the presidential candidate of the party will be?
Okay. For me, the choice of word successor is very discomforting. Because when you say you are choosing your successor, when it actually should be that you are choosing your flag bearer, your party flag bearer. We all went to school. We know what each words mean. PDP had their own primary over the weekend, last weekend, and they didn't say Atiku Abubakar is successor to Buhari.
But are we not making too much out of this? I mean, to say the president used the word successor, are we not making a meal out of maybe nothing?
But I gave you an illustration of what
I understand
Obasanjo did in 2007 and all the previous presidents and what obtains at the state level. You saw in the case of Godswill Akpabio anointing Emmanuel Udom as a successor, and it came to be. And Emmanuel Udom is also anointing a successor, and we will wait to see.
But we also know that there are governors in this country who have anointed successors in the past, and it never came to be. So that's the reason I'm saying, look, are we not making too much out of this?
I know.
You know, and as I asked you, you know, do you think from what the president said, from the language he used, do you think he comes across as someone who wants to single-handedly choose who the candidate of the APC will be?
Well, he's not choosing single-handedly. He has actually asked the governor to get him some names of. But you recall on your former station channels when he was asked way back in January whether he has a preferred candidate, and
Absolutely.
he said yes, but it will not make the identity of that preferred candidate known because he doesn't want any mischief to happen to him. It then tells you that even if the governors come up with a name or two, if it doesn't tally with his own mindset, he may disagree with them. I am of the consideration that the best thing to do under the circumstance is to allow a free, fair, and credible presidential primary. In as far as they have decided on the choice of indirect primary, delegates have been selected or elected. We cannot expect some, because once you say this is the anointed aspirant, it will affect the way the delegates vote.
And don't you think, and let me just quickly ask you this, sorry to interject, don't you also think, because I asked you this question too, that the president's request is coming a bit late, that, you know, he probably ought to have made his mind known a long time before now and not wait until maybe the eve of the primary, because in any case, if not for that shift by INEC, this primary ought to have taken place last week.
Yeah, that's what we are saying. If not for so is it the appropriate time for you to say, I want you to help me, give me the honor of choosing my successor? One thing is this, Deji, if you look at legal jurisprudence, successor is the person who is coming to replace you on that seat.
I understand.
What we should be talking about is the flag bearer of APC.
No, look, Jide, I understand you, but what I'm asking is, should the president have waited before now to say that he should be giving the right, for instance, to choose the candidate of the party? Shouldn't he have said this long before now, so that, for instance, some of the aspirants who have been going around the country campaigning and all of that would not have, if you like, wasted their time?
Exactly. Now this is where we are going. The situation as it is will promote corruption, because from the latest news I read shortly before we started this exercise, it's that the governors have met twice and they seems to have agreed on a choice of a serving governor to replace Buhari. And you ask yourself, if this meeting had been held like a month ago or before the forms were sold, would somebody like Jagaban or someone like Amechi, who is a governor, or someone like vice president, would they have thrown their hats in the ring if it is believed that the next successor of president
if what you're saying is correct, could we be looking at a situation where the APC would want to begin to sell its form again so that this serving governor could come in? And that would be odd.
No, my own take is even this. You need to, whoever is the anointed candidate now or anointed aspirant now, will have to now settle other aspirants who are not favored. Now, he will have to pay them behind the scene, reimburse them of their expenses thus far.
No, I'm just thinking of who they're serving. I mean, because of this story you said you had, I'm thinking of who they're serving, because I'm looking at the list and I can't really see a serving governor, so to speak, on that list, who the president would want to, I mean, who the governors now would want to narrow down to say he should be the one.
No, from what I read, they said the Zamfara state governor, the former Zamfara state governor, and that's Yerima.
Yerima, that's, we seem to be having problems with Jide Ojo's connection. Let me go to you, Tonya. I want you to react to some of these things. For instance, the issue of the president using the word successor.
APC's conversation is an internal conversation. You know, when the president decides to use a successor in the area of in terms of succeeding, we cannot assume that he means that whoever he says or names would be the person that would eventually win the 2023 elections. Like I said, other parties have also chosen their presidential candidates. So I think we should stop hitting the polity with those choice of words. The people who he was speaking to, and some of the political parties or politicians, understood or understand what the president was saying. So I think we shouldn't hit up the polity. Another thing, Mr. Ojo said in terms of it's going to encourage corruption. I think that's taking it too far too. When we're in the media space, and I think we should learn to instead of hitting the polity more, we should try and reduce the tempo. That's taking it too far. I feel like the president has said what he needed to say to governors and the party members, and I feel that it's left for them to go and do what they need to do to achieve to arrive at whatever position. I mean, the president has said what he wants to say. He's one man, he's one stakeholder. Even if he's supposed to be the father of the party, he's one person. People can decide that, okay, they don't agree with whoever he chooses. Then everybody goes, these conversations will not stop by just one conversation. It's going to happen and over again. And within a family, there's always disagreements. But at the end of the day, those disagreements, will all come to a conclusion and arrive at a position that is feasible and workable for everybody.
I get your point. But let me quickly ask you. You think the other aspirants now would line up behind anyone that the president eventually chooses?
I believe that they should, because like I said, the president, he sees a lot much more than a lot of us see, and, I believe that he has said the type of president he wants to succeed him, a president that, would, appeal to all Nigerians and be able to take Nigeria to where we want to see it. So for me, that's the yardstick he has created. That means he means well for the country. And I believe that If he means well for the country, then he should be given a chance to identify one or two people he believes that can achieve, the Nigerian dream.
Gideojo, you're back with us again, and thank God for that. You think that whoever the president chooses, every other person would fall in line, especially the aspirants who have been working very hard and campaigning across the country? Or you think the president's action is a recipe for some kind of crisis?
For me, choosing an anointed or consensus candidate at this point is very dangerous. We saw what PDP did. There were about 8 contestants under PDP. Those who scored 0 knew that they were given fair chance to exercise their right to be voted for. And people chose who they wanted. At the end of the day, there is a reconciliation ongoing. But if you adopt the same measure that the president adopted in the choice of the president's National Working Committee members of his party on March 26, in which case he more or less corralled and coerced all the other aspirants to step down for Abdullahi Adamu of Senator Abdullahi Adamu, former governor of Nasarawa State. That will not work. It's going to create enemy within. Let me give you an example. You want everybody to line up behind the preferred aspirant of the president. How do you heal the wound of those who felt that they are more qualified than whoever he chooses as the flag bearer? And we should try to understand the whole essence of democracy is freedom of choice. When you narrow it down to issue of Baba Sokwe politics, the elder have said, it's not promoting democracy. I cannot overemphasize it. And when I say it's going to promote corruption, I know what I'm talking about. My brother may disagree with me, but let's take hypothetically.
There's corruption everywhere. We can't say there was no corruption even in the PDP process anyway.
This will even promote mega corruption.
Oh, really?
Because they all bought form for 100 million naira. If you now say by Saturday, ahead of Monday, okay, 24 of you out of 25 step down for this person. In order to mitigate their loss, there will be a negotiation. And the party will not be the one to refund their money because the money paid by aspirants is non-refundable. So you now put this burden on the preferred aspirant to settle his colleagues who have graciously stepped down.
Do you think that will be the case? Is that always the case? Are you now saying that, say for instance, like in the case of Atiku, he has to bear the burden of settling the other aspirants?
I remember in the convention, the president told them that they should return the monies of people who, have bought funds, and those monies were returned.
But in this case, it will be difficult for the president to ask them to return the money because those monies will be needed to prosecute the elections anyway. But other than that, I mean, if they are genuine party members, they would understand and probably accept and fall in line with the hope that the kind of negotiation they would make would be probably in terms of appointments. That's if their candidate goes on to win the election. But let me just ask both of you this, and I'll start with you, Gideojo, just before we go. How important is it that the APC produces a candidate from the South now that the PDP has gone north?
Very important for purpose of equity, justice, and fairness. I will not blame PDP for going north. We have had 6 presidential elections since 1999. 4 out of those 6 times, the power has been zoned to the south. So for equity, justice, and fairness, it is okay if the power goes to the north on this 7th attempt to win the presidency.
That is for the PDP. You're not looking at the big picture. You're not looking at the country. You're looking at just the PDP now.
That is PDP.
Because now the reason I'm saying this, because you said for equity, justice, and fairness. So you're talking about equity, justice, and fairness in the PDP, not equity, justice, and fairness in the country as a whole, which of course, if you ask me, I think is more important.
Now for the APC, the 2 times the party has contested the presidency of this country, the party zoned its presidency to the northwest, not even north. Buhari has been the beneficiary on those 2 occasions. And that is the point Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State is making. It is the time for the South to produce the next president. And if a Southern, whether a serving governor, a serving senator, a former governor, whatever, if you choose a Southerner as the candidate of APC, and the 22 governors of APC lined up behind that person, he will win. Because if they work for that person for purpose of unity, equity, justice, and national loyalty, we will see a better country. But if you now say your prime motive is someone to defeat Atiku, and you need a northerner, you need to field a northerner for you to neutralize the chances of Atiku, I don't think it holds water.
Okay. Just because of time, let me just go over to Tonya very quickly, because actually our time is almost up. What's your take on this?
I think that the presidency should go back to the South, like Mr. Ojo said, for equity, justice, and fairness. We've had a northern president for 8 years. It's time for the South to take over the affairs of the country for in the next election cycle. That's the right thing to do. That's the fair thing to do. That's something to do that will carry the country along. In terms of trying to bring unnecessary primordial sentiment and unnecessary sentiment that does not augur well for the country as a whole, I don't think we should entertain such conversation. Like Mr. Ojo said, the 22 governors of the APC decide that they are going to support an individual who has been chosen from the South to represent APC in the presidential election, then we would win, as a party. If we start having conversations of who is going to defeat, are we going to defeat Atiku, or we need another, I think those conversations should be reduced to its barest minimum, because those are some of the issues that are also dividing the country along, ethnic and religious lines.
All right. Gentlemen, I thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining us on the program. Jide Ojo, political affairs analyst, thank you very much for your deep insights. And Tonya Isokariari, thank you so much for your time as well. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. We thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.